Work Experience with your host, Mr. Rock. Hope everyone's doing wonderful out there in the wonderful world of YouTube. Just need a couple minutes before we start. I tried to do this afternoon, but I had problems. So hopefully there's no problems this time. Okay, that seems to be working. Yep, okay. So yeah, everything seems to be working now, so that's great. So yeah, we're going to go into work experience. So everyone knows that technically Mr. Rock had a few jobs here and there, from the DMW to everything else. If you haven't seen the DMW video, you can go watch that afterwards. You know, from being a wrestling owner to being a songwriter to everything else in between. But I haven't talked about the jobs that I got for school and everything else, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So yeah, the first job was the Robert Felcher Building, 1181 Portage Avenue, if you must know. Um, I worked there as a bulk mailing, doing bulk mailing. And if anyone doesn't know what bulk mailing is, it's kind of like doing mailing for school. So technically, all the schools will get mail in a way, and I was the guy that was delivering the mail, like any newsletters, um, like notes, you know. Like, let's say a school was celebrating its 100th anniversary and people need to know about it. Well, I was the guy that was getting that information out. So I was literally the guy doing the school divisions and everything else. So there was that job. I would always do that job off and on. So it wasn't literally a straightforward job. So whenever they needed me, Carmen, Rosie, and Ann would contact me and literally say, well, technically we got a job for you to do. Sometimes they'll pay me. Sometimes they'll give me a pizza party. Um, and sometimes it was just a good lunch. Sometimes they'll just say, well, technically, would you like to come back and we'll pay you a good lunch? And I'll say, yeah, sure. You know, and that job, like I said, always lasted like here and there. So one time they'll literally say, well, technically it will take about maybe 2 weeks here. One time, 1 week. Sometimes, like the longest, I think 3 weeks. You know, and yeah, we'll sit there, do bulk mailing and everything else like that. Um, yeah. Another job I had was Blockbuster. I worked at Blockbuster on Leela. Um, if you don't know where these places are, they're all mostly in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So I worked at the Blockbuster on Leela. It's close to Garden City. So I worked there. Didn't like it there. Uh-uh. So my boss kept on calling me a fairy, the other F word, and everything else. I don't know how long this video has been so far, so don't really feel like saying the other F word. But yeah, he pushed me one time, and that was it. I cold cocked him right in the frickin' face afterwards, after being shoved like that, you know. And everyone's all like, "Are you gonna do something? Are you gonna do something?" I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna do something." I tapped him on the shoulder, bam, and I literally told him I quit. I walked away from that job with my head held high. That's all I'm gonna say about that job. Um, I worked at the bargain store. Um, and if you guys are wondering why I'm not saying the years, it's because I can't remember the years. It's all just a kind of a blur. But yeah, the bargain store I worked at for about 2 weeks. I think it was about 2, 3 weeks. I was stocking shelves and everything else. It's the one that's literally was close to the MTS Center that closed down. So back in the olden days, the MTS Center used to be a place. Um, Now it's called the Canada Life Center, I think it's called. But yeah, um, just a new name. But yeah, I worked at the bargain store, the stocking shelves and everything else. I had some good memories, about that place. So it was a good store. Another place I worked at was Burger King. Um, Burger King, I had a bad experience with, as well as like Blockbuster. I was locked in the freezer for 6 straight fucking hours because I went to go grab some French fries, and the guy literally took the box that I was using to literally hold the door open, and literally took it away from the frickin' thing and literally locked me in there. And I was locked in there for 6 hours. And then when my shift literally was pretty much ending, is when they decided to literally let me out of there. And the manager comes up to me and says, you didn't really work all day. Bam! I punched him in the frickin' face. Cold-cocked him. And I said, if you even frickin' press charges against me, I'm pressing charges against you for frickin' attempted murder. You locked me in here for 6 straight hours with nothing. I'm freezing to death. So, yeah. And you're going to say, well, how the hell did you survive 6 hours? You kind of get used to the cold when you live in Winnipeg, man. You kind of get used to the cold. Yeah, it was cold, and yeah, I literally couldn't catch my breath, but I barely survived. That's all I'm going to say. About that job. I worked at Zeller's restaurant. At Zeller's restaurant, I was the chef and also the busboy, which was kind of freaking pretty cool job. That job is probably one of my favorites. To be honest, I worked with a guy named Clint. Clint was the main chef, but I was kind of like the sous chef / chef. So I was like the assistant chef, which is also sous chef, I guess. But yeah, I was always the guy who was making the burgers and everything else, and I just loved that job. It was just a fun job. I also worked at 7-Eleven on Mountain and McPhillips. Ugh, that job was a freaking nightmare. I was in charge of cleaning that Slurpee machine out, and if you must know what's inside the Slurpee machine, it is nasty as hell. I'm not joking. If anyone's worked at a freaking 7-Eleven or anything, could tell you those machines get fucking nasty, and I had to clean that shit out every freaking day. Sometimes even multiple times a day. Especially like on Slurpee Day. I was working there on Slurpee Day, which is in July. So I was working there in July of, I can't remember what year, but I know it was Slurpee Day. That's how I remember, because I had to clean that machine out freaking about fucking 5 times that day. And I remember sitting there just going, ew, So yeah. But I didn't work there very long. The reason why, because I had to get up at like 5 a.m. just to get to work for literally like 6, and they literally told me straight out that the store doesn't even open until 6:30. So I was literally getting there freaking literally a half an hour before they even open. So I was literally standing outside going, but they will tell me to get to work at 6 until they told me that the store hours are changing. And I said, what the hell? And that's when I literally said, well, technically, if you're not going to literally tell me the store hours in advance, I quit, So, yeah. Other jobs I had, one of my very first jobs. So this is literally going all the way back to like the 90s. I used to deliver flyers. This older kid of mine, I think his name was Russell, used to tell me straight up, well, technically, he had a paper route, and he seen my freaking Fisher Price wagon. I had one, So he literally said, well, I'm riding this bike. I can't carry too many flyers. If I can use your wagon and you can literally freaking help me with some flyers, I'll give you 50%. So that's what we did. And I bet you any money that any 80s and 90s kid, first job was probably delivering flyers or some type of flyer freaking thing. We were all paper boys back then. Either you're a paper boy literally doing it in real life, or you're a paper boy playing the freaking video game. We all did it. So, yeah. So that's why technically like the Paperboy video game literally holds nostalgia feeling for me, because I literally did do that in real life as well. Other jobs I had, I worked at like I said before, what I was literally with Alice Cooper, so I would watch a snake. I did do the comics where I sold the comics and any autographed comics. I point them in the direction of Alice Cooper back in the day. You know, um, I would get paid about $10 to $25 per comic. $10 if it was not signed. $25 if it was signed. I think the comics were going for about 15 to $50. I think it was $50 signed, 15 not. You know, so I was making some good money back in the day with that job. Um, uh, the last job I ever worked at was the Bell Bistro. Even though I was never mentioned in that freaking news article or anything because I told them not to, I just didn't care for the business. I thought the business to be a freaking joke. It was literally the last job I ever had was the Bell Bistro, and the Bell Bistro's used to be on Main, somewhere on Main Street. But yeah, I remember going to work, and I used to find the most disgusting freaking thing ever. I was only supposed to work there for 2 weeks as training someone. Ended up being literally like 8 to 10 months because they couldn't find a replacement. They were supposed to find a replacement for me right away, and I trained both Eldon and Sheldon. So I trained both of them, who were actually featured in on TV, newspapers, and everything else. Those two were featured, but I told them to keep my name out of it because I kind of wanted out of that company because it was nasty freaking business. You know, I seen some nasty shit from the chef not washing his hands after freaking like cross contamination, even using the bathroom. I literally give them shit for that, to be honest. This literally guy that's like 40, 50 years old, literally not washing his hands. I even said straight up, "Do you not know about cross contamination?" He literally told me to shut up. So that's why I pretty much left that business. A lot of people literally say, "Well, why did you leave that business?" There was that, and also health problems. I also had health problems left, right, and center. Um, and that's why I left in 2015 from that business. A lot of people don't know. Like, I literally had a heart attack right around 2015. Um, I was almost dead. It wasn't the first time I had a heart attack either. The first one was in 2010, then 2015, you know, literally 5 years later. So I've had some freaking severe health problems, and that's the other reason why I left the business. And that's also the other reason why I haven't worked since then. Um, so, and my health has been declining over the years as well. I haven't been getting better. I've been getting quite a little bit worse. But eventually, you know, there's always the end of the rainbow, as people say. So yeah, that was the last job I had. I'm trying to think of other jobs I've had. We want. Oh yeah, United Unlimited. I worked at United Unlimited. Um, United Unlimited, they were doing some very sketchy shit over there. And when I mean sketchy shit, something that technically back in the olden days, you know, like today, those standards would not go freaking fly. Like they didn't have a fucking forklift, and they're literally getting freaking like crates of shit in, crates of shit in. And I'm literally sitting there going, "Who's gonna lift this shit?" You know? And they're like, "Well, come on, you can lift it." And I'm all like, "Holy crap, man! These crates weigh about 400 pounds. It even said on the box, 400 pounds." And I'm all like, "Are you kidding me? You want me to lift up 400 pounds? Well, we'll get a couple workers to help you. It's still 400 pounds." You know? So yeah, there was literally a lot of sketchy shit. The only reason why I wanted to work there was to get a discount on swords, because that's where I used to buy all my swords from, and daggers and all that stuff. But it wasn't worth it. I threw out my neck, threw out my back doing that job, and that's the reason why I was forced to quit. My teacher literally told me straight up, because it was through the school, he literally said straight up, "Your back, your neck, everything is literally effed, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." "You're not working there anymore." I said, "Well, you know, I could come back to work." "No, just don't do it. They're gonna use you again." So thank you very much, Marvin Kopp, for that. So yeah, another place I worked at was Sobeys Cash and Carry, and both of these places are on Arlington, so they're right across the street from each other. So Sobeys Cash and Carry, I got fired for this, and I literally say this is probably the worst freaking thing I've ever got fired for from a job. So the employees literally told me about this hoagie freaking thing, and I still remember this to this day. They said that straight up that the hoagies were 50 cents each. So I literally freaking, it was literally after my shift. I go to the freaking back. I literally grab the hoagies that were 50 cents each. I take them to the store. The manager comes out. What are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, we can't sell you those. And I said, wait, what? This employee told me straight up about the 50-cent hoagies. He's like, yeah, they're 50 cents, but during your shift. I said straight up, I just got off my shift literally like 10 minutes ago. I'm going home with the hoagies, you know, and it was already rigged up. I already paid my freaking money. But the manager came out, literally told me that I'm freaking fired and everything else. I got fired for freaking hoagies. You know? And I still remember that to this day. I can't remember the boss's name. I think it was Randy or Randall or something like that that literally fired me from that job. But yeah, I do remember that job. And yeah, I only worked there for about 2 3 weeks until I got fired. Trust me, they got me to break up the most all the freaking boxes in the goddamn store. So yeah, and they didn't give me gloves for about literally a week in a way. So I used to have these freaking like scaly freaking hands and everything else until they literally decided, well, your hands look bad. And I said, yeah, you think? You know, I've been breaking boxes for you for the whole entire freaking like 2 3 weeks, you know, with no freaking gloves on. So, um, I'm trying to think what other jobs that I have. Well, I did watch motorcycles as well. Uh, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't count that as really a job per se, but it didn't really pay well, but it was a job. It was literally the start of something. I'm not going to say what, but that was literally like my first encounter. And I think that's most people's encounter when you deal with bikers. You know, you usually watch the bikes, and then you get literally like a meal or a little bit of cash here and there, you know. So yeah, I did that. Um, yeah, and that's. I'm trying to think. Is that the last? Is that the only job? Oh yeah, Winnipeg Harvest. I just remember Winnipeg Harvest. And technically, if anyone wants to, you could donate to Winnipeg Harvest anytime you like. You know, they're a great foundation. But yeah, I used to work at Winnipeg Harvest, making hampers, checking potatoes. Ugh, that potato job was nasty, man. If you want to talk about a nasty job, that was definitely a nasty job because they'll get you to check through rotten freaking potatoes. You know, so because they want to make sure that they're all fresh potatoes. So any rotten potatoes you have to throw into this freaking bin, and then they'll huck in the garbage. Any fresh potatoes they'll literally put into a hamper for people. Um, I think Winnipeg Harvest has been going on for about 20 plus years, maybe 30. But yeah, they're a great foundation. If anyone wants to literally donate money or food to them, you go right ahead. Donate your money and food to those people. They're the ones that are helping out the community with Winnipeg, you know. And technically, you know, uh, and I always worked there off and on. So I never worked there full time or anything like that. But I would work off and on here and there for the school. You know, the school would ask me, would you like to work at Winnipeg Harvest and everything else? Winnipeg Harvest always gives you a free lunch. And those lunches were pretty good. So they'll always give you a decent free lunch for any volunteers that work there. But yeah, the community has been around for about 25, 30 years, like I said. Always delivering hampers to people that really need it, you know. And like I said, great foundation. If you want to donate your money there, you know. So, But yeah, I'm trying to think of other jobs. Sorry guys, that's taken me quite some long. You don't see a list in front of me, so I'm playing off in memory here. Um, I know I had a few other jobs, it's just that I can't remember them. So that's probably where I'm going to end the video, right then and there. So I want to thank everyone for coming out, liking and subscribing. You know, um, I know that technically in August there's going to be a lot of retro games coming up. I'm not going to tell you which ones, but stay tuned in a way. Uh, if you haven't already, you can follow my Instagram at rockandrollman666 to stay updated on all the games that are coming out. You know, I usually do post the video games in a way that I do play there. Um, but yeah, with that being said, I'll catch you guys maybe tomorrow or the next day with a retro video game. Until then, stay tuned. Catch you guys on the next one. Later, everyone.